Welcome back to Locky Top Sports Squaring the Circle MMA edition. UFC 299 is underway right now. I'm joined today by my guest, Jimmy, aka James. We're going to be looking at the main card today, and we're going to be kind of giving some predictions, giving our thoughts about each of these fighters, and just generally UFC and 299 and beyond. So I will start by asking Jimmy, like, how did you get into MMA, and who's your favorite fighter of all time?
MMA started kind of randomly, like through pure coincidence. Just saw it like online, like YouTube videos. I like the idea of fighting as a sport, the technicality of it, but also the visceral like violence. It satisfies a part of me that I really enjoy. Like just like, oh, like these guys are really trying to kill each other. This is legit. Like wrestling just never did it for me because I knew it was scripted, right? So I wanted something legit, but obviously
Wrestling's fake.
But also, like, I'm the type of guy that if we're back in the Roman days, like, I would have showed up to the Coliseum and saw some sick gladiator fights. And then my favorite fighter, hard to say. There's so many good fighters that are entertaining. Like, there's so many people that put on great fights. I mainly want to see good fights, whether it be like just two heavyweights clawing it out or something scrappy with the bantamweights. We'll talk about a lot of bantamweights tonight. But if I had to choose one name, probably George St. Pierre. I thought George St. Pierre was really good all around. Dominated as champion, just fought a lot, like super legit. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Jimmy. And again, thanks for joining the show. To answer the same questions, like I think around 10 years ago, I started watching MMA, like tail end of college, right after college. And yeah, I was hooked. Like I think it's a really well marketed sport. They make things very exciting and they do a good job publicizing fights. I think for MMA wise, who's my favorite fighter? Probably Khabib or GSP also. I'm a big GSP guy, but I do think that it's hard to say who the GOAT is. It's like one of those things that you like, even more than any other sport, you can never have like a heavyweight fight, a middleweight or something like that. So hard to judge who's the best. But 299, we're in the thick of it right now, boys. So we got a lot of fights to discuss, and we'll sort of start with the main event, primetime event, O'Malley versus Vera too. So, Jimmy, can you take us through like maybe a little bit about the first matchup and what your thoughts are about each fighter?
Yeah, so I think the first fight, it was legit, right? Like Cheeto definitely won. Like O'Malley got injured throughout it, but he definitely didn't look the same fighter since then, right? Like O'Malley's definitely went on a crazy run. Like Sugar Sean's real. I think a lot of people don't take him as seriously as a fighter because he's not like a traditional champion, right? He's not like Jose Aldo. He's not like Alexander Volkanovski. He has more random antics going on. He has the whole thing is like, I think he was in an open relationship with his wife or something. Like, just like there's just like this guy has a lot of shenanigans going on, right? Whereas like Alexander Volkanovski is just like, yo, I want to fight. Like, bring me a dude, right? We're gonna fight. I just want to win as much as possible and fight. But he's not really that type of guy. But I think his striking is for sure tier one. Like when you hear O'Malley talk also on interviews, like he's clearly quite knowledgeable about the fight game. He like truly loves his craft despite the antics and shit. Like I think he just like, dude, there's nothing more fun than just getting in the cage and fighting. So I think next things is legit. I think like O'Malley is the current champion is definitely favorite. I think the line's like over 200, minus 200 for O'Malley. At those odds, I don't know if I like it as much. Cheeto is definitely like, Cheeto's a real gangster, man. Like I would be afraid of Cheeto if I ran into him on the street, right? The guy looks like thuggish. He's super scrappy, tough as nails, down to just like get bloody with the rest of them. So I think it's hard to say. But I think if they say pure striking, I think O'Malley probably picks him apart. Like I think the last few fights, O'Malley has really shown, like Sugar Sean's really shown his striking is adaptable to virtually every fighter. Mm-hmm. And I think Cheeto is kind of like, I think UFC isn't scripted, but I think they do put up fights where they're like, there's a purpose to this. And we'll talk about that as we go down the list. Uh-huh. But I think in this case, like, I think, they really want to see Sugar Sean like hold it for a bit and then like see what the next contender is. I think there's a lot of movement in the bantamweight, so it's like really hard to say. But I think I like Sugar Sean. I don't know at minus 225. Like I don't know if that's the right odds.
Minus what we have right now is minus 260 plus 210 Cheeto. So minus Sugar Sean is minus 250, 260 ish.
I think he's probably favored to win. I don't know if he wins like that convincingly. I think like Cheeto can pull it off. And I
Yeah.
also think like the first fight, like it's gonna be on both their minds, right? Like
Yeah.
Cheeto, dude, I won straight up. Like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, you got injured, but in the fight, like I injured you, right? And Sean's, oh, it was a freak accident. Like my leg, like kind of like got fucked up, right? And then that's also kind of true because we haven't seen anything like that out of Sugar since then. Like since then, it's been very, very clean. So. There's a joke like before this fight, like well before this was booked, while Sugar was still coming up. Whenever someone bring up his record, he'd be like, "Yo, I'm undefeated," right? Like, no, it didn't happen. Right? That's like a real thing. So it's like you can't say that he's not in his mind at all. And I think for him, like avenging this would be huge. He'd be like, "All right, like, dude, guys, look, like, come on, I'm clearly the better fighter."
Yeah, I think that's an important point, and I think what my point is that Dana White kind of picks like a crowd favorite or like a star guy or it factor guy, and it seems like Sugar Sean is one of them. He's been kind of looking for who's going to be the big personality in MMA after Connor, right? Because Connor is basically too rich for MMA right now, or too rich for UFC, so he can't be forced to fight anyone. But I feel like Dana White is making a big bet with Sugar Sean. Sugar Sean, obviously, like pop culture wise, is pretty relevant. Hangs out with the Nelk boys a lot. He's on their podcasts. Hangs out with Dana as well. So it's someone that they're pushing on you for a reason. I think he is really good, and some of the popularity, as you said, masks a lot of the skills that he has. His striking is really strong. Like he's got a weird. He's like the tallest bantamweight ever. I think. He's so,
super lanky. His body
super lanky,
super lanky,
super lanky, super unorthodox way of hitting. So I think that should be a good fight. I don't really think that we will see this fight go the distance. That's what I would say. Like I wouldn't bet this money line, but maybe take the under here. I think that could be something interesting for the betting public, but no strong lean either way. No if official pick there. All right, so I think the next one we could talk about is Poirier St. Denis. Jimmy, why don't you get us started there?
Yeah, so this is the co-main. Dustin Poirier is like one of the best to ever do it, right? For sure, legend. But it's kind of old and it's kind of his last hurrah, right? Like I think a lot of fighters go through this where they're like still elite, like they're like top 5, top 8 in their division. They're like pretty close to like maybe a title shot. But it's like they know they're getting older, right? And I know this because in the sparring sessions, you start feeling it, right? Like if they hit like 35, it's like, yeah, like they can still piece up the young people because they're like, oh, like I'm physically strong. But you can tell by like the third and fourth workout, they're like my coach has said this before. He's like, yeah, like when you get older, like by the third or fourth workout, you're like, oh, back in the day, I would be fine. But now I'm like, like 36, not fucking 24. Like I'm not fine anymore. So I think Dustin's kind of on his way out. And I think like this is one where the odds just seem very much like a Vegas trap. So Dustin's plus 175, right? Minus 210 for St. Denis. We'll talk about him in a second. But funny enough, both of them had French last names. I think Poirier is a French last name. But the other guy is actually French.
I think Poirier is just like Louisiana, Cajun.
Yeah. But yeah, I think if Poirier loses this, right, like because he got KO'd by Justin Gaethje, right, who's also like Max Holloway made a post about like a lot of these people are the last of their breed, right? Like this, we're seeing a changing era in the UFC. Right, like Max Holloway, Justin Gaethje, like these people who've been around for so long, who just like scrapped it out. But like Max was a champion, but Justin never got there. And Dustin's kind of in a similar category as Justin Gaethje, where it's like he's elite, right? He's gonna definitely go down as like really good, but he never got the belt. And I think in the history books, ultimately, like if you had chances to fight for a belt and you didn't get there, because he's had shots, right? And it's like then it's like that's just on you, right? So I think Dustin's like if he loses this, I can't really see him gaining for another title run. Like yeah, he beat Michael Chandler, but then he lost Justin Gaethje by a head kick KO. It's like it's pretty dicey. He's getting older. I think I see a lot of young talent, and then like also lightweight. Like Islam is just the best. Like clearly Islam is the best heavyweight in the world right now. Like lightweight in the world right now. So yeah, I think this is like if he loses, it's kind of over. And I think the Vegas trap is like people are gonna pile Dustin because no one really knows the other guy. The other guy's pretty legit too, right? Saint Denis, his nickname is God of War. He's
Mhm.
ex-military, right? Like very much like this guy is like looks like a killer. When you see his highlights, is a killer. It's very very good across the board. And I've noticed MMA have like there's kind of cycles or metas with like certain regions. So we had like when Khabib came out, right? The Dagestanis, and they're still like just dominating today, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But I think like we're seeing kind of like a random French contingency. I don't know if there's a French-born UFC champion, but Saint Denis looks clean. Like he looks very vicious, very aggressive, and just kills people, right? And then like one thing I've noticed, like you don't know for sure because like I obviously haven't had any physical contact with these people, but it looks like in the cage, Saint Denis is much stronger than other lightweights. Like he looks physically like he can lift them up, not vice versa. And I think that's how he gets through a lot. So we'll see. But he also never has fought anyone like Dustin. So this is like going to be a real test. I think with veterans, if you fuck up, like they just close it out like that, right? Like you saw this with Dustin against Michael Chandler, right? Like Mike Chandler didn't really do anything that bad, but it's like Dustin got to the back and just like boom, choke taps you out, right? So yeah, I think if I had to pick, I'll pick Saint Denis just because of Vegas trap. I just don't think Dustin is ready for this new wave.
Yeah. I also feel very similarly, Jimmy. I would have to agree with you there. I just think that it's a perfect trap set by Vegas, and I just want to show you Saint Denis for people that haven't seen him. He looks like a savage. Like he looks like he's been in the military. He looks really crazy. Looks like bloodthirsty, and I think that's what we'll see tonight. I'm nominating this as my lock of the card. Saint Denis minus 210, minus 220.
Yeah.
Like if you want to put it in a parlay, I think it might be a good idea if you're afraid of paying minus 220 on a straight bet, but I'm not done it many times before, and I'll do it again, and definitely on Saint Denis here. Poirier, awesome guy, all time like guy in the UFC in the sense of people love him. Fought a lot of the legends. He actually has a hot sauce that's pretty good. If you guys don't know Poirier's hot sauce,
Yo,
but
that's another thing, right? When these athletes get into the business side, they just can't. You can't be fucking like. There's a line about Conor McGregor. It's like, yo, you can't be taste testing that proper 12 and be fight shape ready, right? So something like that.
yeah,
And it's like it's kind of true. Like I'm sure the hot sauce is fine. Also, like yeah. But one other thing about Saint Denis, this guy on your screen. So he finished a military career, right? And
yeah,
then he gave himself 2 years for the savings to be like, all right, I'm gonna go all in on MMA. If I can't break through, like and make money professionally, I'm gonna stop in 2 years. And that was in 2019. So it's like this guy's kind of new to the game.
yeah,
But I think he has this weird like fearlessness. Like when you see his fights, it's just like he's gonna just go at you. He's gonna swing. He's gonna get hit. Like dude, shit's gonna go down. This is probably one of the fights I'm looking forward to the most.
mhm,
Because I think Sugar and Cheeto are gonna be a little bit coy at first. I don't think they're gonna full fire. I think it's gonna be like there's gonna be some bullshit like let's be technical for a second. Because I think Sugar knows like I think neither of them really want to grapple, right? and then,
yeah,
but they'll really want to focus on setting up the striking. Whereas I think these two are just going to go for it.
yeah. Yeah, should be a great fight, and I agree with you there. Like I think that's if you're gonna watch one of these fights, watch this one.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
all right, next up we got Holland versus Page. Um, I think this one is just really weird. Um, I think they're both in it for like not just the glory, but probably the check here. Like it doesn't seem like this is like a normal UFC matchup. They both fight like really weird, really unorthodox style. So that's pretty much all I got there. I'm not too familiar with Page. I've seen
Yeah,
Holland fight before, but yeah,
I think this fight was kind of genius by UFC actually. It was something like no one really thought about. So Michael Venom Page, MVP for short. He is very brash, right? Like huge trash talker. Came from Bellator. Did pretty okay, but wasn't like anything crazy, right? And Kevin Holland is known to be a journeyman, but he also explicitly cites he's fights to entertain his fans and to get paid, right? He has no real interest in a title shot. He doesn't really matter. he just wants to fight that like gives him his paycheck as well as like he can put on a show for everyone, right? Like so both of them are kind of characters like that. In terms of style, dude, these are two of the goofiest fighters, like an entire roster. Like they do some really unconventional shit. So I don't really know how their fight camp went, right, with each other. Like I don't really know the prep for this because both are so weird. Like Kevin Holland has pulled off some kung fu shit, like legit actual kung fu moves. Kevin Holland's foray into MMA began with kung fu, actually, right? So that's kind of like a weird background. Like most people come from like wrestling, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, boxing, right? Like all the other ones come from one of those, right? And then Michael Venom Page, he self-describes his fight style as like a mishmash of like taekwondo, boxing, street fighting. Like it's kind of just random shit, and he's kind of like whatever goes, right? So he's coming at you from whatever angle. One thing I don't really know is I want to say I think Holland is actually more favored than minus 130. So it's minus 130 Holland plus 110 Page. I think Kevin Holland will pull it out. I think Kevin Holland, they're both like veterans, but I think Kevin Holland's probably just a little bit more solid. And I think I want to say he's more durable, right, than Page. And I would imagine, I don't really know their wrestling backgrounds, but I would imagine Holland is better on the ground. So it's definitely like a fun matchup for in terms of personality. I think UFC did this kind of like for the fans, like, hey, this is kind of quirky, right? Whereas the stuff before and after are kind of more about the lineage of the fights, of the rankings, right? Like O'Malley's doing a title defense, right? And then if Saint Denis wins, he's kind of gonna be one of the contenders because Islam finished everybody, right? Like he's probably gonna have to fight maybe Justin Gaethje, right? Assuming Gaethje wins at UFC 300. But then like Saint Denis is probably next up on the lightweights, right? Because Islam has to fight and he's cleared everyone else, and it's like also there's like Arman Surakayan, so that guy's probably next. But yeah, like Saint Denis is definitely making a run, and I think Justin was kind of like going to it. Whereas Holland vs Page was kind of like Dana's like, yo, this is kind of funny. Let's make it happen. And Holland and Page probably both were like, yeah, money. Where do I sign?
Yeah. All right. I think the next one we can talk about is Burns versus Madalena. Not sure if I'm saying that right. I actually really like Gilbert Burns in this fight. I think like he's built like a brick shit house, hence the bricks behind me. Burns, bricks. I'd never really seen Madalena fight. And I just think that Burns on the ground is ridiculous. So the fact that you're getting him as a dog, maybe that's the Dana White trap. I don't really know, but maybe. What are your thoughts, Jimmy?
So I kind of think a little bit similar to Dustin's spot. Burns has been through a lot of wars, and he's like definitely held his own. Super tough dude, but also kind of the back end of his career, right? Like hind legs. So this guy's name is Della Maddalena, right? His last name is Della Maddalena. Oh. So he's Australian. What's funny is when I first heard about him, I was like, this guy sounds like a boxer. And turns out he is a boxer, right? So that's kind of his style. So very two different opposing styles. They both know what to prepare for regarding the other guy. Burns is obviously a former world champion BJJ, right? Like can't really get on the ground. But one thing I've noticed is that Burns on the ground game has been a little bit absent over the last like 5-6 fights, right? With Usman, right? Like, yeah, Usman's a wrestler, but the whole point of BJJ is that like you should be able to move control enough on the ground. Like you're a former world champion to like tap him out, right? But he got knocked out because he kept on striking. With Khamzat, there was a lot more striking than needed, and I think it was just kind of like, yo, why are you two both swing? Like it's like, dude, just get him to the ground. And I think like there's this misunderstanding of like wrestling versus jiu-jitsu where it's like they're different, right? Wrestling focuses on different skill sets in terms of like weight distribution. Like you're not going for chokes and stuff. So Khamzat might be really good at wrestling, but I think once you get into guard, like I'm not saying he's bad, right? Obviously he's elite, but like I don't know, like you're a former world champion, right? You're also Brazilian. Like, come on, dude. So I really think maybe Gilbert Burns is jiu-jitsu is kind of like Yoel Romero's wrestling. So Yoel Romero is like had like either second or third place finish in the Olympics, like world-class wrestler. But once he went UFC, and then partially because he had the surgery, he just like didn't really wrestle again, right? He was just like, nah, fuck it, let's I'm a superhuman anyway, and just throw punches. So I think in this fight, like Burns grappling is unlike anything Della Maddalena has ever seen. Like, there's nothing he's ever seen that's even close like it. But this guy lost his first 2 fights and won 16-0 since, right? So he
Oh, shit.
definitely this dude is definitely like the real deal. I think this is one I'd probably stay away from. They're also 10 years apart. So Jack is 10 years younger than Burns, 37 and 27.
Oh, wow.
So I think MMA, you kind of prime at like 31, 32, because you need a long time to get experience and your body's still getting stronger. But after 35, there's definitely like a dip, right? Like, so yeah, like, and also Burns has been through some real wars recently. So like, I don't know. I think the odds is probably correct. I think maybe like Dana knows it's kind of a changing of the guard. Like, there's a new era of fighters coming out, and fighting's like any sport. Like, I saw the podcast with you and Ron where you talk about how nascent and new UFC is, right? But that's just since the merger. The UFC in its current form has changed so much in the last like 10, 15 years. Like, from 2010 to now, when we first started watching UFC, like even then, it's like I mean, before that, there wasn't a Connor, right? Like, I went through the entire Connor saga from beginning to end. So yeah, so I think it's super new, and I think we're just not used to a changing of the guard, because this is the first changing of guard since the UFC got really popular. So yeah, I think this one's gonna be a fun one. I don't really know. I think it could be over very fast from both sides. Like, I can see this guy just getting tapped out by a world class jiu-jitsu artist like in the first round.
Okay.
So we'll see. But yeah, I will stay away from this one.
Yeah, so I think Vegas agrees with you there, Jimmy. Like, I see the over under at 2.5 rounds, and 2.5 has the juice. Under 2.5 has the juice. Minus 150 to the over, plus 120. So yeah, if we light lean towards the under there, I think that would be pretty good bet for you guys out there that are betting this. Last fight of this card, main event. It's Yan versus Song. Yadong Song, one of the funniest names, just rolls off the tongue. He's got the dong in it. He might put his full dong in Yan's mouth. But I think what's interesting here is another older fighter kind of decaying kind of story that we're seeing here. Peter Yan used to be like really scary, right? But now he's lost a bunch recently, and he's not really what he once was. Obviously, he's aging, so this might be one of his last fights. So I think Yan is the small favorite now, minus 150 to Yadong Song plus 130. But I think just to make it interesting, I want to fade Peter Yan. He's on a bit of a losing streak, so I like to follow trends. I like to play box, so this seems like a good box spot to fade the public favorite.
Yeah, I mean, I think Peter Yan's a very interesting story. So he's not really old. He's 31. He's like interim prime, right? The other guy is much younger, like he's in his 20s. But Peter Yan has just seen like a complete collapse, right? Since the illegal knee, right? So when he fought Aljamain Sterling, right, who lost to Sugar Sean eventually, the first time it was like this illegal knee. It was blatantly illegal, like. And when the illegal knee happens, it's kind of hard to say how it plays out. Sometimes like point deduction, but if the fighter can't continue, like they just wave it off, right? It's like DQ. And it's tricky because I've been to like live fights, right? Like not UFC, like just local events. And it's like when you see it like 6 feet or like 9 feet away from you, it looks so much more devastating than like seeing it on TV, right? Because when I see it on TV, sometimes I'm like, yo, but like, can't you just chill for like a minute or two and just like get up, right? Like there's that thought in my brain. But when I saw it happen in front of me, like some kid just got kicked in the head, like on the way with one knee to the ground. And then and there's like, this isn't like televised, right? This is just like a random local event that people are fighting at. And it's like, oh, like he's just fucked. Like this kid just like could not move. Like it was like, yeah, dude, he's not in the state of mind to be like, yeah, let me just rest 5 minutes and I'm gonna get back in the ring. It's like, no, dude, the fight's over. So I kind of get it, but since that illegal knee, he threw the knee, right? Peter Yan threw the illegal knee, so he didn't get injured through it. He just fought worse and worse. Like then it was Corey Sandhagen, where it was like Corey's just like could reach and like couldn't really damage him, so he won. But then he lost a rematch to Aljamain, right? Which was fair. I think Aljamain did win the second time, right? Yeah. He just didn't have the same potency. And then since then it's just been like he lost to Sean O'Malley, which I thought was like tight, but like I also think Sugar Sean. I think that was one where it's like people were like, "Oh, but like refs," but it was like, "No, I think Sugar won that like straight up." Um, he also didn't like he just stopped doing damage, right? When you said Peter Young was scary, like it was just always about doing damage, right? Like against like Uriah Faber, like Jose Aldo, it was like, "Oh my god, this guy's fucking doing damage," and then he takes him out. But then like since the illegal it's been like, "Oh, you're just like in there, you're in the pocket, you're weaving, you're trading shit, but you're not killing them," and it's like, "Whoa, I don't think it's your style." And then against Marab, I mean, Marab, I actually think Marab is the current best featherweight in the world. Like, I know he's not the champion, but I actually don't think anyone's beating Marab. Like, I don't think, I think if it was Marab fighting Sugar, which probably should happen next, I think, like, after seeing what Marab did to both Peter Young and Henry Cejudo, it was like, dude, just straight up manhandled. Like this guy's a different level. So yeah, I think in this fight against Peter Young, I think Peter if he loses, he's gonna get cut by the UFC. You can't like you lost 4 out of the last 5, 3 in a row. Like I think it's over, bro. Like because even if he wins, right, he needs like 4 more wins to even be in contention of like a title shot. Because you can't win this and get a title shot. That's ridiculous. So I think Song Dong is fast. He's very agile. I think Peter has lost a step, maybe because of it lost this psychologically. I don't know. But Song's very fast and agile, like very snappy. Trains under Uriah Faber, which is interesting, is because I saw it embedded a while ago. Not for this one, not for you at 299. And Uriah Faber and Song Dong had a very close relationship. He was like very instrumental in helping Song get like accustomed to the United States and training him. And Uriah Faber is like definitely like a legend. However, today Uriah Faber came out of unretirement. He came out of retirement. He unretired
Today?
Yeah. Or yesterday. And then he's gonna fight some random like not UFC, like some random promotion. I think he might be also like a producer in the promotion. Like this is kind of just like helping his own shit out. But like if you're doing that, like if you're gonna get in the cage at all, you're not like, let me train this other guy for a real UFC fight while I'm also like preparing this. Like you're not doing that. So yeah, I don't know how coaching is gonna shift. Song's good. Song beat Cheeto, who's fighting Sugar like 4 years ago, right? Obviously, kind of a different Cheeto. Cheeto was still tough back then, but Song's quick and snappy. I think Peter Yang, like this is kind of like not just like last hurrah, but like, bro, this guy is like on the edge of the cliff and like one leg is over the cliff. It's like I don't know. He could fold real fast. I also think Song like wants it bad, and I wonder like it's like stuff like this, like fight game mental game is like unlike other sports in my opinion. Like it's not like tennis where it's like happening in the moment. It's not like basketball or team sports because like you're so limited by what you can do, right? Like if you're in NFL, you're not on if you're on defense and your offense is up, you're just like, yeah, you might be like, oh, this is nervous, but like, but you're not on the field. Like, you literally can't do anything. Whereas like the fight game, like Peter definitely knows, he's like, dude, I've just lost 4 out of the last 5. Like this is like I'm not a killer anymore, right? Like because you're gonna have to doubt yourself. Like you just lost 4 out of the last 5. I thought when he had the first fight with Aljamain Sterling, I thought Peter Yan was the best featherweight in the world in that moment. Before the illegal, I was like, this guy's gonna win for sure. And then when the illegal knee happened, I was like, bro, why did you do this? Like you could have just won. Like it's like cheating when you don't need to, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so here we are. And like the last 4, and then like since then, like the featherweight's been just a complete spin, right? The bantamweight, right? So like Aljamain lost it, won the belt, defended it, lost it, right? Sugar has it, is about to defend it tonight. And then we know Merab is like coming for it because Merab's whole thing was like he wasn't going to fight Aljamain Sterling because they were teammates. So I think bantamweight is super interesting, a little bit underrated because I think the weights are a little bit lighter. Like people, it's scrappier, it's more technical. Maybe it's not like it's kind of why Mighty Mouse Dimitri Johnson never got the credit. But I think this will also be a good fight. I think 299, the card is good. A lot of like setup for like some grand card, right? Because every card can't be like super epic. I think 299 is just a setup for in the future where like we'll find out a lot about a lot of the main divisions, right? We'll find out a lot about the featherweight, the lightweight, and the bantamweight, I think. And I think those are probably like a good portion of the UFC, I think. Because I think like not that many people watch heavyweight, and it's like light heavyweight, middleweight, and welterweight requires a lot of work to get the division interesting, right? There was a boring period with Israel Adesanya in the middleweight. Like I was kind of like, bro, this is kind of boring. You're just like running around, you tap them, they tap you, and then you win. It's like this is not good for TV. But I think a lot of interesting cards tonight. I'm super excited to watch it all.
Yeah. So the last topic for us is previewing 300. is a lot of fighters here. I'm not sure if you can see it, Jimmy, so I'll just read it out. We got Pereira versus Jamal Hill as the main. This is light heavyweight title. Then we got a second title, which is Zhang Wei Li. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Zhang Weili.
Zhang Wei Li versus Yan Xiaonan. I don't know how
Yeah.
to say that either. And then we got a lot of the bigger names, but not really as big as their peak was. So we got Gaethje versus Holloway, Oliveira versus Sharukin, Jiri Prohaska versus Rakic, Calvin Kattar versus Aljamain. My boy Bo Nickel, one of my favorite up and coming guys,
Yeah.
versus Corey Brundage, Davis and Figueiredo versus Corey Garbrandt, and Holly Holm versus Kayla Harrison. I think this fight is getting some flack because the main event is not really as big as the other fighters, but you do get at least 8 to 10 fighters that most people know if they're serious UFC fans. So just want to see if you think it's a big card or if you think that it's not as much of a banger in comparison again to other centennial cards, right? UFC 200 is Misha Tate versus Nunes, Brock Lesnar versus Mark Hunt, Cormier versus Silva, Aldo versus Edgar, Cain Velasquez versus Travis Brown. That's just banger, 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 banger. And again, comparing to 100, Brock Lesnar versus Frank Mir 2, GSP Thiago Alves, John Fitch versus Paulo Thiago, Henderson versus Bisping, etc. So just want to get your perspective on number one, are you looking forward to this card? What are you most interested in fight wise? And is it, does it, take billing as a top card for you?
Yeah, so I think the billing is fine, right? I think there's been too much maybe spoiledness. Like I think it's fine. I think UFC is there's probably too much hype around the number 300, right? It's not like if 300 is okay and 301 is really really good.
Yeah.
Players should really be viewers shouldn't really be upset. It's still a good show,
Mm-hmm.
I think overall it's pretty good. I think UFC 200 was better, right? Like you said, a lot of bangers in there. Prime Michete, Prime Amanda Nunes, Lesnar Hunt, that was epic, right? Cormier Silva, who would have thought, right? Jose Aldo and Frank Edgar, definitely more bang for your buck, so to speak. But I think the 300 is legit. I think Alex Pereira gets to defend his title, right? And I think it's look, if you look at the lightweight rankings, okay, he just beat Yuri, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jan and Magomed, maybe they weren't available, but they are probably what I think the real contenders as opposed to Jamal Hill. But Jamal Hill is the top prospect, right? It's not like this is some random screw up they just found out of nowhere. He is the first contender, so it's not that crazy. I would have preferred Alex Pereira. I actually, as an Alex Pereira fan, I actually prefer this, and then we'll lead into Magomed. Because Ankalaev, I think is just an actual killer. I'm oh my god, there are people in UFC that I'm oh, that's an athlete, and they're oh, they're killers, right? There's a difference. This guy's an athlete versus this other guy's just a killer. And I think Ankalaev is definitely a killer. I think Zhang Wei Li, where is UFC 300 being held?
Vegas.
Vegas? Okay. So I think the Zhang Wei Li thing is just I think we haven't really seen it maybe. China over China for a title belt. And then it's I think Zhang Wei Li is going to hold the strawweight title for a while. Dude, she's so good. She's good at every aspect. And it just seems unlike Peter Yang, right, who we talked about earlier, she just seems to get better with every fight. Every fight is oh, picked up new tricks. I'm going to use this. I'm going to use that. She's piecing people up left and right. I don't really see it. It feels very dominant. As much as I troll about Ronda Rousey being like fake in the sense of she wasn't really in there when she got famous. And she wanted to strike, and it was bro, you're not a striker. I think Zhang Wei Li is kind of that same level of dominance because for a while Ronda was just cleaning people out one after another, right? So I think that's a good fight. Justin Gaethje and Max Holloway, I've been excited for this for a while. Max Holloway is finally moving up to lightweight. I think they're both in the tail end of their careers. They want to put up bangers, and I think this is that. I think the most interesting fight is Oliveira versus Arman.
Yep.
Both want the title run for two different reasons. I think Charles Oliveira, like having tasted it, there's nothing else he wants anymore. Like I
Mhm.
think it seems like in Nevada he's rich now. This is it. Like he understands he's also like in the back half of his career, and like I think he's just such an emotional dude that wants to like win, right? But Arman's like up and coming. He's just like, bro, he's Armenian. Well, like when you're the first from your region, I think there is something like dope about being champion. Like they always say, like, oh, I'm gonna be the first Italian-born champion,
Yep.
Armenian champion, whatever. So I think the odds maybe a little bit skewed. Like I didn't really think Oliveira would be this much of a dog. But maybe just a new wave. Maybe the next generation of fighter is just much better. Like, because we see it every like 5 years, right? When I look back at UFC every few years, it's like, oh, like pre-COVID UFC, they were not as good as they are today, right?
Mhm.
And during COVID, like when I really got to hear the fights without any audience, I was like, oh, okay, this is some vile shit. Like, this is some real violence. Yuri and Rakic, I think Yuri's also kind of like had the meteoric rise, and now it's like you got to prove yourself like one more time. Like not as in this upcoming fight, but it's like
Mhm.
the next few fights. Like Yuri has to really, after losing to Alex Pereira, like he's really got to prove himself. Like he can just wipe out the other light heavyweights to really to really get another title shot. Calvin Qatar, Aljamain, I think this is just kind of like a whatever thing. Calvin Qatar's gotten much better since fighting what's his face, getting beaten apart by Max Holloway. It was like 700 punches or something thrown in the fight, like a UFC record. And then
Yeah.
Aljamain Sterling is moving up from the bantamweight, and this is kind of a sign of like he's older. Weight cutting is like always brutal, right? You talked about this, Ron. It's
Yep.
so brutal on your body. So Aljamain's moving up. We'll see how he does. Like
Mhm.
this could have just came as a result of the last fight where he lost against Sugar Sean, and it was kind of like part of the reason he lost. Maybe he felt like, dude, the weight cutting was too brutal. Because like once you're in like late 20s, 30s, like your body doesn't just drop and pick up the water that easily. Bo Nickel, I think this is just a gimme. Like I think Bo
Yeah.
Nickel's what does it say?
Lock.
Minus 1450? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Bo Nickel's definitely up and coming, and he's definitely like he's gonna take out some like people journeymans, and then once he gets to the real vets, we'll find out like how is he really.
Mhm.
But elite wrestler, he seems like a very elite athlete all around. Fast, strong,
Yeah.
durable,
He
like
looked like
everything above.
he can play NFL, NBA,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
sport.
Like every yeah, I think he's like a purebred athlete. And then Cody, I mean, Cody's been done for a while. He
Yeah.
trained for 5 years just to beat Dominic Cruz. Like this guy was training for like years to beat this one person who was beating everyone on his team, right? Team Alpha Male. And
Mhm.
then he beat him. And then since then, he's just been getting whacked left and right. So like you can consider him a super specialist. He specializes in countering one person's movements. Davison Figueroa like just went through a series of fights with Moreno. I think he's probably massively favored here, real
Yeah.
dog. But the Kayla Harrison Holly Holm is kind of funny, I think, or entertaining to me. Whereas Holly Holm is definitely on her way out. She had the moment where she killed Ronda, but since then it's like she didn't hold up the belt for long. She's like a contender in the field, kind of like Dustin Poirier, but she's in the back half. Kayla Harrison, I think could go down like at the same level as like Amanda Nunes, but she was not in UFC for a while. Right, she has 2 Olympic gold medals, just a beast like wrestling. I also think when you look at her, she looks like a physical like specimen as like a female fighter. It's like, oh, she's fast, she's strong, she's muscular. It's like this person is legit. So I think overall 300 is a pretty good card. I think it's just that Alex Pereira versus Jamal Hill wasn't something that immediately when you hear it, you're like,
Mhm.
oh, I want to see that, right? And I think it's a little bit unfair because it's just kind of how things played out. And they couldn't really get any other title fights, right? Like there's just not really any compelling title fights immediate. Because remember, 299 is happening now. Like Islam's not fighting. Also remember, this is happening in April, so there's some like Muslim like Ramadan stuff happening. I
Yep.
think over certain periods of time. So a
Yeah.
lot of the Muslim fighters are like, oh, dude, I can't be doing weight cutting while doing this, which makes a lot of
Mhm.
sense. I get that. So like lightweight can't really fight. I would have liked to see Leon Edwards, and I think Dana White mentioned that, but it just didn't work out. But I would have wanted to see him. I think I want to see him fight like Bilal Muhammad or something, or Kobe Covington. I think, but I think ultimately in welterweight, Shavkat will reign supreme. I think in the years to come, Shavkat Rachmanov will just obliterate everybody. Like I just don't think it's close.
All right. Thank you, Jimmy, for joining us. UFC 299 and 300 preview. Stay tuned for Locky Top and Squaring the Circle Pod for your general sports podcasts and fighting podcast updates. Thanks again for tuning in. This has been Jimmy and Naveen. Locky Top out. Peace.